welcome back to another episode of Sexy Marriage Radio alongside my wife, Pam, who's been a world traveler lately. And so she's
a little jet lagged.
She's had a lot of airplane time the last 2 days.
And it's so good to be home with you.
And she's got henna all over her hands.
I do. It's pretty cool.
I mean, so if you're on YouTube, well, it hasn't switched over to you, though. You got to keep talking so that the camera will switch to you.
I got to talk. So, I see all the fun.
She got the whole Indian wedding experience all last week. And so it's great to have a chance to recover and get back together again. But at Sexy Marriage Radio, what we're trying to do is just speak straightforward and honest about what goes on in marriage. And this is going to be a fun one because we've had in the past where there's almost been a exchange-based concept for sex of like, if I do this, then I'll get this, right? Like there's this component. Chore play fits into this category.
Sure.
But what about the reverse of this, where a question came in about my wife and I, we have a decent sex life. It's usually pretty good, but I would like more frequency. And she's on board with the sex for the most part. But she actually proposed, what about a sex for rewards challenge? Where if we have sex more, it earns me things. Jewelry, weekends away, whatever it might be, that fill in the blank.
Okay.
So it's interesting of like, how would that work? What's the pitfalls? Why it could be really destructive is what we're going to talk about. But could it actually work is the other side of it.
Well, I immediately think of positives and negatives to this.
What are the positives you think of?
You ready to roll on it?
Let's go. Yeah, we'll jump right in because the extended content, we're going to talk about what you can do instead.
I can see a couple that is in a healthy spot that just has fun with life and they have creative ways to do things, right? And I don't think that this is a good solution if you're not a couple that collaborates on your sex life.
Yeah.
If this is truly I'll do more if you'll give me this vacation. Well, why aren't you doing more anyway? Right?
Why don't you just go on vacation?
Why don't you just go on vacation? Yeah. I mean, come on. Vacation is
right.
Good.
If I want a weekend away, I'm just going to go. Why don't I just claim a weekend away? Right.
Exactly.
Because some of that is just on my overall functioning, because that's what you're describing. And I agree with this.
Yeah.
If I'm at a point where I feel like I want to treat myself to something sexually or otherwise, right? Within my marriage, if I want to treat myself to something sexually with you, then it's up to me to bring that forward and seek it. Right?
Yeah, because I would think the sexual encounter together would be much more enjoyable if I'm just excited about doing that rather than if I'm trying to get something out of it.
Right, because here's where the operative word on how you started it as a positive of if you are in a spot where you're collaborating well, and it's imperative to realize spots only last for so long. We all have seasons of we're not collaborating as well anymore. Sure. And it's typically because something's gone underneath the surface. I've started harboring some sort of uncertainty, insecurity, reading things into it, resentment, what have you. And now all of a sudden it creeps in because my differentiation level lowered a little bit. And so I think if you can keep it out in the open and make it playful for times, okay, why not? That's a fun collaboration of life.
Yeah, I guess
but
that's my idea.
But it can't be a long-term thing because it would almost guaranteed one person will start to go dark and uncertain about some things. They'll read something into it. And now all of a sudden it's turning into a commodity and it's not desire.
It seems like that would play out pretty well. I mean, you can typically kind of read where your spouse is during the sexual encounter. And
you would think a lot of people can read that, but there are actually a lot of people that can't.
Well, they either can't or maybe they're just ignoring it on purpose.
Yeah.
Because they're just in it for the orgasm.
Well, and let's also be clear that this is what we're going to be talking about, and what we've already started hinting about is this is sex beyond just functional level sex. Mm-hmm. If you want to just have functional level sex and make this an exchange-based kind of thing, okay, try it.
But sex for you, because you're not getting the most out of what you could get out
most
of,
people
right?
in marriage.
And the connection within this marriage. If you're just doing the exchange-based, where's the connection? Where's the spiritual aspect of this, the godliness that right. comes from
the soul to soul possibilities?
What this beautiful encounter can be.
Right. And that's where you're talking about something a whole lot deeper. And that's where I think what married sex is really based on. And this is last week's episode that I did a replay of the better oral sex. And I made a comment in that episode of, I think a majority of married couples don't want just pleasurable sex when they start really honestly looking at it. I want something more meaningful too. I don't just want always just, oh, this was really pleasurable, because that only lasts for so long because of the law of how the newness wears off, the connection changes, and it does become just this act where we can do it at times. And not that that's not fun and enjoyable and pleasurable, but if that's the only reason, you're missing a whole lot what else is underneath it. And so if we're talking about getting any possibility of living in that world of desire, that's where this starts to get off the rails. That's why it becomes a reward system is fraught with all kinds of problems. It's like incentivizing behaviors, maybe, but incentivizing wanting, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's not going to be I'm doing this because I want you, rather than, if that's the case, I'm doing this or you're doing this, and I'm always, in my mind, I'm going to be going, what is she after here? Is it this moment with me, or is it a new car?
Yeah. Can I afford the new thing that this sexual encounter is about?
Whatever it might be.
Sounds like a pretty expensive way to live life.
It very well could be, unless we do girl math, and apparently a lot of things
It's
are free with all of that. But even this whole philosophy is not free.
No,
because you're talking about something deeper.
It's not emotionally free. That's for sure.
Because we also talked about this last week's in the repeat of the episode of, when you get down to brass tacks, when it comes to our sex lives, and in this conversation last week, we were talking more about in the oral sex arena, but it fits in all of our sex lives. You get into, okay, how do I start coming to grips with, as those interactions are happening between husband and wife, how do I come to grips with a level of care I see from my spouse, of wanting to be there, of being engaged, of caring about me, of caring about themselves? And that's the element a lot of us go blind to, or don't even have the courage to look. And so that's where this starts to have some major pitfalls on this framework. This also can dovetail, because it's the holiday season, into the realm of, what if I want to give sex as a Christmas gift? Well, okay. We did an episode last year about that. That was on Christmas Day. Christmas fell on Wednesday when new episodes came out. So it was a short episode on just, is it an acceptable gift? And again, I think the same principles apply, that you can have some fun with it. But if I'm trying to do something where I'm trying to create and cultivate desire and wanting, it's not going to satisfy it. I'm basically outsourcing it. I'm trying to buy it rather than earn it and grow into it. And there's a difference.
Earn it?
It's self-earned, not from you. I earn myself. And that's what we're going to talk about in the extended content.
Okay.
But let's talk about some of the pitfalls that happen.
Okay.
On why this can be really perilous as a task of anything I do that's more exchange based, particularly with our sex lives. It really can become problematic.
I mean, I think it put a currency on it. Like, is actual sexual intercourse worth this level of gift? And is a blowjob worth this level of gift? Like, you put a currency on this. I could have my own currency.
And what if my currency exchange rate is different than yours?
Oh,
like,
my
oh no,
gosh.
that did not earn it because it did not, and that's where it's.
And based on where you and I are, like, the exchange rate fluctuates.
I didn't even put that as a pitfall.
Minute by minute.
This one actually fits. So
right.
rather than 7 pitfalls, there's 8. The exchange rate changes and fluctuates for each person. There's one of them. But the other one, so one of the other pitfalls is the idea of compliance does not equal desire, right? It's outcome performance sex. It's a shallow connection because you don't know. To
even use the word compliance with a sexual relationship with my spouse that's a negative connotation to me right there, to say, if I'm going to comply with.
Well, that's in the same spirit as the obligatory. It's obligation.
Right. These regulations that we've set up for what we've said we're going to do.
Because it's not freely chosen conscious desire. Mm-hmm. It's not a wanting. It's not I'm leading towards an offering.
Well, it's not a wanting of my spouse or this connection with them. It's a wanting of whatever the outcome is that I get on the other side.
Right. So that's one. The other, and why this can become perilous, is because every couple has an element of a control dynamic that plays out when you talk about higher desire, lower. The lower desire controls the situations most of the time. In sex, when you're talking about frequency, the lower desire controls sex as far as the amount of times, because they get to say yes or no to all the initiations that come by. And so this kind of dynamic is a further strengthening of that dynamic.
I got you.
Right.
Okay.
Because it's just it's adding new layers. It's pay for play almost. It's that element of it's adding a layer of, wait a second, this just has a different gatekeeping mentality to it, which then is going to sink into, I'm going to second guess what's going on here. Why is this actually happening? Is, now all of a sudden I've already started disconnecting because I'm watching differently, or I'm hoping for differently.
I'm watching differently because I'm
what's the real
I'm
motivation here?
Yeah, to see what their motivation is
Right.
behind saying yes to sex.
Right. I mean, I've even heard this happen with couples where a guy, he clued in several weeks or several days later. He's like, wait a second, because a thing dramatically changed in their sexual frequency. And he realized she was, because it wasn't shortly after the frequency change occurred, a big ask came from her. And so it was like, I'm buttering him up, so I get a greater likelihood of getting the result I hope, because I've already buttered him up with a lot of sex. And it's an element of like, okay, again, that's part of our human dynamic. And it just becomes really problematic when I'm not aware of it and I then actually weaponize it.
Yeah. We figure out how to read people, including our spouse.
Yeah.
And know how to manipulate.
Which then this adds into, on the other side of it, not only does it further enhance the gatekeeper side with the lower desire, it also can create this adequacy spiral for the higher desire, because they're wondering, what's this really about? What does this really mean? Because it doesn't produce the wanting. It doesn't produce feeling desired.
Yeah, I'm only adequate enough if I'm making enough money to pay for all these things they want on the back flip side.
Well, for an example, for an example of this, in case it's not resonating with the audience, this is based on the same principle that you can have if you're the lower desire spouse, that you feel like all your spouse wants you for is sex, or you're a high earning spouse and you feel like all you are is a bank account. Right? That's an adequacy thing, because it's tied to something that has some truth, most likely. And so this just further enhances this dynamic. And that's why it's a serious pitfall of, it just makes the divide between higher desire, lower desire all the greater, possibly, because you're both are acting in ways there's like, I've got to second guess this thing. I'm not quite sure what's the real motivation here. What is this really about? And if I'm already thinking that, man, we've already lost some of the sweetness that we could be having, right? And so another one is, and as we've kind of been hinting at this, is it erodes trust and it erodes erotic honesty.
So, okay, take those as A and B.
Okay.
How do you say erodes trust? If we're devil's advocate here, if we're full disclosure, here's what I'm going after.
Well, okay. But again, that's based on a more situational, we're going to try this for the moment. I'll do this if we get this kind of a thing. I'm talking about if this becomes part of your whole dynamic of, I want to make our sex life a rewards-based system. I want to earn gold stars. And if that's the case, then it's a commodity.
But for the couple who's just, I don't know, where would this, I'm sorry, that was A, and let me go back to B.
Okay.
Which you referred to as
it diminishes erotic honesty.
Yeah.
Because eroticism is built on my willingness to be seen as an erotic person and bringing that forward. I don't get assurances on how it's going to land at all.
Are we talking from the person who is giving it, or I guess I'm confused.
It can land on, okay, if this is one of those, now I've got this level of interaction between us, and now I'm kind of just marking it and tracking it as such. If I want to alter it, can I speak up? Because now all of a sudden I'm negotiating new terms. And it's this whole element of, at its essence, If I want a more vibrant sexual relationship with my spouse, where I love this phraseology, it's from Shinarsh, I believe, where we get to taste the sweetness of each other, that's built on my presence only as a part that helps create and cultivate the possibility of that happening. It's not about requiring something of you. It's a wanting and seeing if it's wanted in return. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty clean right there.
And so that's eroticism too. If I'm going to bring out eroticism, there's a good chance you're not going to applaud, because it'd be like, whoa, I didn't know that. We didn't talk about that. We talked about just this. We would go through this act and that's enough. And so again, it's limiting the essences of each of us, which diminishes things. And this is why a lot of couples in marriage only reach levels of sex that's a certain functional level, because neither one has really taken the risk of, I'm going to bring myself forward and see what happens. The other way this kind of shows up on the eroding trust and even making the erotic honesty is if anybody in the nation has ever tried one of the 7-day sex challenges. You know, at face value, it seems like it's okay, let's do that. But then at some point you can usually like, okay, we just got to get this done. And it's like, I'm kind of diminishing
checking something off a
what
list.
this is really about in that instance. So it becomes this dynamic of what we have to start faking it, or rather than, it becomes the challenge for challenge sake, which is the same kind of concept of reward for reward's sake, rather than wait, the moment in and of itself is the reward. If I treat this well, if I offer myself up well. Then another one is this concept of the whole concept of quid pro quo, you know, anything built on that, the reciprocity economics. If you go just face value, that those can only go so far, because again, it's like what we've already talked about. It just gets messy. Life has things that just happen. And it's like, I mean, every single one of us, if you've been married any length of time, you've had something that's been hit on a really good trajectory that day. And it's like, man, it was a great day. It's a great date weekend. And then lo and behold, it went sideways. And it's like, but hold on, I'm earning this. We got to see this through. Like, no, it's kind of lost now. And then, so we've kind of lost our ability to be flexible and adjust, which is really the essence of what married life is, of maintaining connection, even in the midst of disconnections, right? So it's like, it becomes this superseding goal rather than the point is actually, how can we be present, be connected, be engaged, not just trying to satisfy something. And the last thing that this does, as far as a pitfall, is it can just totally kill playfulness.
And that's, yeah, I totally see that.
Right? Because even even something new would have a thought of, what are they trying to earn here? Right? I mean, that's the whole concept of how we read people. Our maps are that all the time, of being able to, okay, what are they really after? If you got kids, that you know this, when they come in and start interacting with you differently. Hey, mom, that's a really good shirt. You look really good. And that's something totally out of the norm. Immediately, you're like, what do you need? What are you wanting from me here? And that becomes a problematic that starts to become like a scorekeeping, and it takes away curiosity, and there becomes all kinds of problems from that. And so here's what I want to know from the nation is, which of these can you see play out the most, if you think about it? Because we've all, and I'll be honest, rather than saying all of us, I've played this role at times in my life of, I'll make it a commodity. I'll make it if I do this, this will happen. If I, all those kinds of things, because that's just the way our minds.
A lot of people have been in that.
So if I'm honest with looking at this list of, here's the things that wreak the most havoc, which ones show up the first? Like, what's my most common thing where I start to see there's a real problem with this? And let us know on the platform, smr.fm, actually nation.smr.fm. And then we'll keep going on. What do we do instead in the extended time?